Does Donald Trump even know what year it is? After being missing for days and showing up nearly an hour late, keeping Navy service members waiting for him, Donald Trump showed up and said he wrote to Osama bin Laden a year ago. Wait a second. A year ago? No, a year before 9/11, and he deserves some credit for it. What? This was a speech to the Navy in Norfolk, Virginia. Virginia, geez. Donald Trump saying the following.
I don't want to be politically correct anymore. And history will never forget that it was the SEALs who stormed the compound at Osama bin Laden and put a bullet in his head. Remember that? And please remember, I wrote about Osama bin Laden exactly 1 year ago, 1 year before he blew up the World Trade Center. And I said, you got to watch Osama bin Laden. And the fake news would never let me get away with that statement unless it was true. But I said 1 year before to Pete Hegseth. I said 1 year before. Where's Pete?
You said it to Hegseth. What?
In the book, I wrote, whatever the hell the title, I can't tell you. But I can tell you there's a page in there devoted to the fact that I saw somebody named Osama bin Laden, and I didn't like it, and you got to take care of him. They didn't do it. A year later, he blew up the World Trade Center. So we got to take a little credit because nobody else is going to give it to me. You know the old story?
Trump wants credit. Now, I know that Donald Trump isn't literally saying he should get credit for 9/11 happening. He wants credit for warning us about Osama bin Laden. But he is completely disoriented once again. This is a feeble, addled man. By the way, Trump's also saying things that are nonsense. The CIA began pretty aggressively tracking Osama bin Laden back in the mid-90s. There was a unit set up in 96 focused on al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. They've been aware of him since the late 1980s. It's all wacky. It's all completely crazy. And by the way, the reason Donald Trump says whatever the book is called is because there was a book published under Trump's name around 2000, and it has like the most minor passing reference to Osama bin Laden. The reason Trump can't remember the name of the book is because a ghostwriter wrote it for him. Donald Trump not only can barely read, he certainly can't write either. Donald Trump then started talking to Navy service members in one of the most politicized speeches to a branch of the armed forces that we have seen in a long time. Trump started talking about a lawsuit, and he lied about the outcome of the lawsuit. Lies.
They didn't say in the Gulf of America. No, it's called the Gulf of America now, and nobody's playing games with it. We got sued by the Associated Press, and they lost. In fact, the judge was so good, he said he's calling it the Gulf of America. He's got all the approvals. You have to do that, too, to the very liberal Associated Press. They got thrown out of court. In fact, they're almost not allowed to cover me anymore because of that. It was a big hit.
Those are all lies. The AP is not almost not allowed to cover Donald Trump. I know that in his authoritarian wet dream, that's the way that it would be. But the judge actually ruled in favor of the Associated Press and said the Associated Press has First Amendment protections. If the government opens its doors to some journalists, then it can't shut doors to journalists based on their opinions, and that the Constitution requires that. Now, Trump then went fully political with the Navy, saying we have a little gnat, that's GNAT, and we've got to get it off our shoulder. That gnat is called the Democrats.
But we have to take care of this little gnat that's on our shoulder called the Democrats. They want to give all of our money to illegal aliens that pour into the country. And, you know, I have a bigger heart than they do. But the problem is when you do that, they come in by the millions. Everybody wants that, so you can't do it.
Millions. They can't do it. This is a disgusting speech. And another, I hate how many boxes we're checking out of the authoritarian playbook. Another thing authoritarians love to do, because they recognize that being able to get away with it often depends on, is the military on your side or isn't the military on your side? Authoritarians love to propagandize to the military. And part of it is also about inducing fear. It's not just propagandizing to the military to try to get them on your side genuinely, but it's also about making them wonder, if I'm not on Trump's side, if I don't go out and do his bidding, whatever it might be, what consequences might I suffer? It's a way that authoritarians get the military in line because they know they need the military. After this completely pathetic and humiliating speech was over, Donald Trump capped it off with a little bit of the double jerk dance as YMCA played. What a world we live in. You know, I go back and forth between when the history books teach about this, I hope that they represent this era for the humiliation and embarrassment that it was. And then I go to, I hope that there isn't a lot in the history books about Trump because it's been so bad, but it's important to learn about things that were bad. If it is important to learn the true story of slavery, and it is, if it's important to learn the true story of the civil rights movement, and of course it is, then it probably is important for future generations to learn about the atrocities of this administration. And then the next question sort of becomes, where does the military ultimately land? That's a question that we are ultimately going to get back to. But first, we've got to hear what is happening with regard to the shutdown and job losses. And as you can imagine, it's not good. I've been tracking my family tree for a long time now, and the service I've always relied on is MyHeritage, which I started using long before they became a sponsor. Trusted by over 90 million users, MyHeritage makes it easy and fun to build your family tree with a range of powerful genealogy tools at your fingertips. One of my favorite features lets you quickly find new family members and add entire new branches to your tree. It's always a good time to sit down with my family, show them what I found. For example, the other day, I found a scan of an immigration document from when my mother's uncle's aunt arrived at Ellis Island, or this document from the US-Canada border for my relative who was born in 1895. This is remarkable stuff and really interesting artifacts that are part of the puzzle of my family's past. MyHeritage gives you access to over 19 billion records like this, making it easier than ever for you to uncover amazing new pieces of your family's history. You can try MyHeritage completely free for 14 days when you go to davidpakman.com/myheritage. The link is in the description.